Before we tell you the best Fujifilm camera, we need to ask you one question. What kind of photographer are you? Fujifilm's X-mount mirrorless cameras are designed for keen novices through enthusiasts and independent content creators, right up to professional photographers. There are several new features on the X100V, so let's start with the lens. Fujifilm acknowledges that the original 23mm f/2 lens needed an update to do justice to the latest sensors, and says the new lens offers better resolution and lower distortion. You can't change lenses on this camera, but you can use Fujifilm's optional WCL X102 wide conversion lens to get a 28mm equivalent focal length, or the TCL X102 teleconversion lens for 50mm equivalent. It's also possible to attach an optional RX100 adapter ring and the PRF49 protection filter to make the camera weather resistant. We're told that the camera is largely weather resistant already, and it's just the lens needs the extra protection. Inside, the X100V now has Fujifilm's latest 26.1 megapixel APS-C X-Trans 4 back illuminated sensor. This has a modest 2 megapixel increase in resolution over the previous model, but the chief advantage is a big improvement to the autofocus system, faster processing speeds and the 4K video capabilities. Video features are becoming ever more important for photographers and content creators, and the X100V can capture 4K at the usual 30/25/24p frame rates, but also 1080 Full HD footage at up to 120 fps. And for more advanced filmmaking, it can record 10-bit 4:2:2 quality video to an external recorder via its HDMI port. The hybrid optical/electronic viewfinder has been upgraded in the X100V, but the biggest change to the viewing system is round the back of the camera, where the old model's fixed screen has been replaced by a tilting touchscreen display. From a distance, the X100V looks just like the previous cameras in this series. It's no smaller in width or height than the average mirrorless camera, but much slimmer. The 23mm f/2 lens protrudes only a small distance from the body, and this is a camera you could easily keep in a coat pocket. First, the X-T4 now has in-body image stabilization. Fujifilm first used this on its bigger and heavier X-H1 model, but the IBIS unit in the X-T4 is smaller, lighter and more efficient, and Fujifilm claims up to 6.5 stops of shake compensation even with unstabilized Fujian and prime lenses. Second, a new shutter unit offers a much quieter action and a higher continuous shooting speed of 15 fps, compared to 11 fps on the X-T3. You can use the electronic shutter at up to 30 fps in the camera's 1.25x crop mode, but the mechanical shutter is better suited to fast-moving subjects. The new shutter also has a much longer life, 300,000 actuations compared to 150,000 on the X-T3. Third, there's a new NPW235 battery that offers up to 500 shots on a charge in normal mode and 600 in economy mode. It's not quite up to DSLR standards, but it's a big improvement over the 390-shot battery life of the X-T3. Fujifilm has added another new feature to the X-T4, a vari-angle screen. It's not the 3.5-inch 16:9 screen seen on the Fujifilm X-A7 and X-T200, but Fujifilm says it needed to use a regular 3-inch screen to allow enough room for the D-pad controller on the back of the camera. Other improvements include a new Eterna bleach bypass cinematic film simulation mode, a new autofocus algorithm for better face and eye detection and some revised external controls, notably a new still/video lever on the top of the camera. The Fujifilm X-T4 has the same classic rectangular design and external exposure controls of previous Fujifilm X series cameras. It's a paradox of modern camera design that it takes a mirrorless camera like this one to truly replicate the handling of a classic 35mm film SLR. Something different is here. This camera turns anticipation into reality. The texture of titanium stimulates your senses, while the unique viewfinder prompts discovery and creativity. It brings back the desire to interact with the world through a camera, while attaining an understanding to record it as your own for eternity. The X Pro 3 is the definition of pure photography. The hidden LCD encourages a more traditional shooting style, asking photographers to concentrate on composing using the viewfinder. Of course, you can flip open the screen to check your images between shooting sessions, but in essence, the X Pro 3 wants you to trust your instincts as a photographer and shoot without the distraction of checking every image. The LCD screen helps you to adjust the settings and find what needs to be improved, ready for next time. The LCD screen has an anti-reflective coating, a wide angle of view, and is able to display images with high contrast and natural colors, ideal for reviewing or composing images in bright daylight or low light. Digitally representation of film-based visual effects are something only allowed for iconic photographic equipment. The visual effects appeal to users' emotions and inspire imagination. The use of memory LCD means users can easily see the settings for film simulation, white balance, etc. when the camera is turned off or on. The GFX 50R's 50.1 megapixel resolution will be a big draw for quality-conscious photographers, and its sensitivity range is pretty good at ISO 100 to 12800, expandable to ISO 50 to 100 2400. Right now, however, you do have to accept some technical compromises when you move beyond full-frame cameras into medium format territory. For a start, the GFX 50R is limited to 3 FPS in continuous shooting mode, and while it can capture unlimited JPEGs, it has buffer capacity for only 13 compressed RAW files. It also relies on a precise but slow contrast-based autofocus system, as hybrid on-sensor phase detection AF has yet to make it onto these bigger sensors. However, with up to 425 selectable AF points covering most of the frame, together with face detection, eye detection, single-point AF, zone AF and wide/tracking AF, it doesn't lack sophistication. The GFX 50R doesn't have in-body stabilization, and so far the Specialist 250mm telephoto is the only GF lens to feature an optical stabilizer. On the plus side, its big focal plane shutter still manages a maximum speed of 1/4000th of a second and a flash synchronization speed of 1/125th of a second, and Fujifilm claims a 150,000 shot shutter life. Elsewhere, the features are classic Fujifilm, with external physical dials for lens aperture and shutter speed control, a choice of multi, spot, average and center weighted metering options and further control over exposure and tonal range via dynamic range expansion and separate shadow and highlight tone control. This is on top of Fujifilm's regular array of film simulation modes, now totaling 15 different options, from supersaturated Velvia through to its rich Acros black and white mode. These are applied to in-camera JPEGs, but it's also possible to process RAW files in camera to produce as many variations as you like, saving them to the memory card either as JPEGs or as 8-bit TIFFs. It's also possible to add a film-like grain effect and employ Fujifilm's new color chrome effect, which increases the depth of strong colors without losing fine, textural detail or clipping the color data. Fujifilm says the IBIS system in the GFX 100 offers 5.5 stops of stabilization across 5 axes, which suggests that you could use this camera handheld in many occasions where you wouldn't dare with other medium format cameras. Creating a stabilization system for a sensor this size had meant a complete rethink of usual chassis construction. In addition to the usual front plate, back plate and top plate, there is fourth piece for the lens mount that is independent of the other pieces in this engineering jigsaw. The extended height of the back plate for the vertical shooting controls and tween batteries means that Fujifilm has found the room to add an additional long thin information panel at the bottom. This can be used to show key camera settings, or, say, to show the histogram display without it impinging on the LCD screen. There is no button to cycle through this options however, so the choice needs to be set in the main menu. The rear LCD is a big 3.2 inches display with 3 directions of movement. The eye-level viewfinder is a beautiful 5.76 million dot display which is a joy to use, and as this is interchangeable you can use the older EVF-TL1 tiltable version as with the 50R. As ever with a camera, much of its capability is decided by the power of its processor, and in this regard the GFX 100 offers blistering speed. It is 4 times the speed of that in the GFX 50S, and offers a data rate of 1 GB per second. It needs this in order to provide brawn needed for the image stabilization and to provide the ability to shoot 100 megapixel pictures at up to 5 frames per second. But you also see the speed in simple things like replaying images. There is no lag as you cycle between shots, allowing to whiz through your shots at speed.